Unica is going to be aggressive, if V3 are going to rally around their engage and look for the picks, yeah, Galio's got decent follow-up, but it is going to be on the V3 actually utilizing their picks, which we've seen a lot in the early parts of the split, not so much recently, and this game, I think everything relies on them being able to go aggressive.
The other issue I have is that as a team, you've now drafted a what I would call a one carry comp. Yes, Galio does provide damage, but he's more based around utility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And historically, when V3 is running a single carry comp with dress code as their AD carry, it doesn't tend to go very well, which does cause me a lot of concern because that side lane matchup isn't going to be particularly fantastic either. So it scares me a little bit in terms of the fact that I feel like if you don't get a lot going in that early to mid game, you are going to start to fall down a bit of a cliff, especially with Talia scaling a lot better than she used to. Having said that, I didn't really think about the idea of using Galio as a counter to the Talia wall. It just worries me potentially that you don't get there in time. So V3, maybe they can still find angles. Maybe they get these opportunities from CGA making mistakes and maybe misplaying. And with this Predator lock-in from Yu-Gi-Oh, there is the option of just running at Talia, and maybe you can not have to risk getting yourself self-stunned. But with this Unseal Spellbook and the Cleanse maybe coming through later, as well as things like the Ghost being your default summoner, there is going to be, I think, very few windows of opportunity for V3 to do so. So they'll need to sort of orchestrate those themselves. And potentially by doing so, they might be able to find a couple angles to get this early game going.
All right, Blitzcrank's a believer. There we go. It's out there, 56%. I take those odds.
All I'm going to say is that last time when the Kindred came in, these were the odds flipped around that the Kindred still won. So I don't know if Blitzbot might be a little bit drunk on Robo Oil at the moment, but we'll see whether or not that does come fortuitously, as V3 Blitzcrank news can confirmed.
Damn, this is actually all the way in the V3 side. I don't know how this AI works. I'm gonna be honest. But you know what?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I imagine that. So here, I'll try and give a rough overview of the lane. Bot side, nothing should happen because Zeri should always have her dash to avoid Primo's hook, unless they hit level 6, in which case then Primo could start to be a bit more advantageous. Mid lane Talia, oh well.
Yeah, there's the hook onto Dresco Ignitus. Damn, that's a lot of damage. Hitel is going to take a beating as well. And yeah, Hybrid and Primo doing the Nautilus things, going for early trades and winning them.
I love the fact that I'm like, yeah, Zeri has E, so she can never get hit by hook. Instantly gets gibbed by a hook. Fantastic. I didn't factor that into my equation. Neither did Blitzbot. Anyway, moving away from the bottom lane for a second, we've got this sort of jungle positioning. Both these guys playing sort of into their blue side quadrants now, wanting to path up and down respectively. And I think this is going to somewhat favor the red side of the rift a little bit, because you do obviously get that bot crab guaranteed. You're also potentially looking at diving something like a Zeri Yumi early when there's no barrier available to stall that one out. It is possible. And even if you trade, it's very much beneficial, because then Hybrid gets going. Then once you hit 6, you can scale bot side with your Talia, and everything gets really difficult. Meanwhile, on the top side, it's quite hard to dive this Gwen when the HP threshold is the way it is, and especially with the fact that there isn't any emphasis on Gwen having to dash, particularly to avoid the gank itself when you do have that W to keep yourself alive a little bit longer, when you do have the Q for healing, and the Conqueror gets stacked very fast. So I think that V3 are in a little bit of an awkward spot here, and with the lane as it is, Unica can't really find an angle, so I'm expecting the Poppy probably just recalls, because if there's a duel in the 2v2 top side, it might get messy.
Well, they are going for it. Unica dashing forward, pushes Nap back, Nap down to half health. The Howl Mist has timed out, but it just pops the Ghost, walks away, and I mean, it's a summoner out. It's not a loss for V3.
Yeah, it's not a loss, but I don't even know if Nep really needed to blow that one. Does end up doing so for that safety, so I can understand it, but we'll just teleport back to the lane, I imagine, with something like the sort of armor boots, the tubbies, but doesn't actually have to go for it. Instead, can go for the ring for a little bit of an extra sustain with the mana issues that potentially do come into play when you are playing against a non-mana based champion like this Na, who sort of just doesn't need to care about those things. Obviously has Fury Bar to worry about, but there's always going to be that slight issue that in a sustained matchup in those early stages, you are going to be using more resources than he will. So maybe that's the idea for that one, but it does mean now that Washidai can come back with a slightly better scaling buy of that cull, and we see a little bit of a farming mentality, should we say, come through in the top side.
Absolutely. Even Washidai wasn't really setting up the lane, perfectly to gank. At the end of the day, Nap was close enough to the tower that he could just walk away. And yeah, Unica now in the bot side. We'll see if he's ever going to revisit that top lane, because it is something that we have seen from Unica a few times this split, where he will just gank a lane, get a summoner, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, there is sort of the idea that if you go to a lane once and you get a sum, you really need to punish that cooldown, but it's not exactly been on the cards as such here for the side of E3. What could be on the cards, though, is this roaming potentially now from the Galio. Look at the buy. Instantly rushing those Merc Treads, knows that they want that Predator to be as strong as possible, as well as a little bit of MR to help with the lane itself. It will be okay against some of these champs, but I actually think that overall, the Tarbies would be a little bit better, but it's besides the point. Will struggle a bit for mana, though, because there is no Sapphire Crystal, which obviously Kakon doesn't have to care as much about, having that tier come through. I'm a bit worried.
Yeah, heavy trading happening in the top side. Ultimates being traded. Washidai is very low. Unica is up here as well. And Nap just pushed towards the star and says, thank you very much. I will take the escape. And that was anticlimactic.
Yeah, but is the flash blown there for Washidai, which is a massive cooldown to be invested when your Wukong is pre-6 bot. Ooh, good dash. Because obviously Kassin can now go to that top side when he does hit level 6, engage onto the Gnar. Maybe you can get time your ulti to interrupt the hop, and then Washidai just dies. There's nothing really that can be done at that point. So might look to do this dragon, reset, clear out those top camps, and that will probably give Kassin around level 6 mark given XP values. So he is now on the cards to make a really strong proactive play, and off the back of that, you maybe transition it into Herald Vision, and then the game starts to snowball from there. So CGA, they have a potential window of opportunity opening up thanks to that play from Nap in the top side.
Yeah, they get themselves the dragon now, push in the bot lane as well. And just look at the AD carries. Hybrid almost at 20. Well, it's more like 15 right now. CS ahead, has got the Noon Quiver, has got the Cold. Philios is going exactly according to plan, as Kassin will be trying to steal that red buff. Unica spots it out, but Cocoon is around, as that's going to be the hook connecting onto Hetel in the bot lane. That Yumi is a very squishy champion. Ignite last tick will not be enough. Hetel survives. Both summoners burned by the Yumi.
Yeah, and honestly, that just screams out it's a dive angle now potentially for CGA. They've opened up a lot of windows of opportunity for themselves. They can go top side, they can go bot side. Summoners blown across the board. V3, you're not finding exactly that early game that you really wanted to as a team stylistically, but maybe there is that scaling. Blitzbot had the Hopium, so we'll see if that can come out as another hook. It's very, very scary, isn't it?
Yeah, something just to touch on. We had a very slow early game. Did Primo just cancel the animation of the hook right there? Or was it a spectator bug?
I don't think so. I think that was...
Okay.
If so, I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, because I don't feel like Primo did. I could be wrong. My eyes might be deceiving me. However, what we're not being deceived about is the fact that V3, they're the ones that seem to want to play with this Herald. They've already moved their Galio up to potentially cover or look for a play onto Nat, but with their bottom side, the Zeri just going straight to lane, Yumi going to pilot, and you have to feel like with both these supports roaming up, potentially, I would rather have the Nautilus at this point in the game specifically, and with the Weaver's Wall available to wall out members of V3, CGA, they get themselves this priority ahead of time. They've already moved their support up, and the vision control is now being established and squeezed out here against V3, as Shadai is going to get potentially roamed on, but that pink will can spot him out.
Yeah, and Herald started by CGA. I don't really think V3 can contest. In fact, Unica will be moving back down towards the bot lane. So it is a free Herald picked up by CGA. No real gold lead to speak of just yet, but they are getting all the objectives on the map.
Yeah, and it does mean at the very least that the gold influx will come quite largely, should we say, through this Rift Herald, because obviously when you get that one, you can then get yourself several hundred gold worth of plate money, realistically, as long as you don't make the mistake of either one, not defending it, which we have seen in the LJL before, or two, dropping it too late, which we've also seen before, but that won't be an option this time around. So we because obviously with the Herald spawn timer, you either don't place it or you're probably going to get the plates. Having said that, though, even though it's been a quiet early game, Unica has been able to farm up a little bit of a storm in that jungle position, but it's been it had been somewhat counteracted on the bottom side. However, I want to say credit where credit's due. Code has managed to farm back into it a little bit. It's only down sort of one wave instead of the 2 or 3, which it was a minute ago. So great stuff there from the V3 AD carry to at least catch up somewhat. And in this isolated situation, it seems like the Poppy has farmed up well. Problem is that I think Poppy, after one item in the jungle, isn't doing that much in terms of itemization because you just don't make enough money. The jungle isn't exactly a financial... it's not Wall Street. You know, there is some issues there. Or actually, maybe it is like Wall Street in different ways. But yeah, it starts to have some issues after sort of 1 or 2 item mark, which is really a mark of the Poppy needing to find more once we do see this first item come through.
Yeah, Herald utilization is the next place I'm looking at, though, for CGA to try and get back, because we look at the scoreboard, V3 actually in just under 1,000 gold lead right now, so they've used the fact that CGA rotated for this Herald and committed multiple members to be like, yeah, we're just gonna farm up, we're gonna catch up ever so slightly, and now sitting with the gold lead, but the Herald is the trap card for CGA. If they use it well, can win them the mid game. Use it poorly, and well, you're giving V3 time to scale, which isn't exactly something they will be unhappy with.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely good scaling. You do have those options if the game goes a little bit later. I think that both teams have relatively good scaling, though, because we've seen the value of Mrs. Immunity in that top side in some previous games. And my word, she's immune to taking damage when she reaches a certain point. As well as obviously you have Aphelios and Clea who scale pretty well too, but you can't undervalue a Zeri Yuumi. The question for me is whether or not CGA in those later stages will be able to find access to dress code with this much defense. It's going to be quite the task, I think. But if the Zeri can pump out the damage, there's definitely a late game here for V3 too. I just feel like this topside matchup will start to be a problem in the side lane if nothing is able to happen. And with this rotation coming to the mid lane, they're wanting to break this tower open pretty early. And it just seems like, unfortunately, V3, they're a bit late to the party. They're going to suffer the crash in the mid lane. They're going to have to kill the Herald, which means that they're not first now for the Dragon. And with that stacking up, it would be Drake number 2 for CGA if they can start it. However, Washidai doesn't have the teleport available, so it would potentially be a 5 versus 4 if Nat backs up and TPs to one of the towers.
Yeah, very precarious position for V3, especially if you look at Nap. He is far away. That's the Keeper's verdict. Use already final chapter now as well. And Unica will steal the Dragon. Well played by V3. And they walk away as well unscathed.
Fantastic. V3, they understand their limit. They don't push too far. And it's very, very rare in the LJL, I feel, that we see a team go, okay, we're playing for the objective, and then we're out. That's it. We don't need to do more. They don't push too hard, and it's something that we don't see often from V3, but it works out fantastically. They get themselves the objective thanks to a great steal from Unica, and while the Keeper's Verdict only hits 1, the engaged tools don't come through for CGA crucially, so they're able to get in, they get out like thieves in the night, and they'll take themselves a little bit of gold, and that nice little bit of stacking up into their back pocket.
And you deny the early soul for CGA with that as well. So all in all, pretty big play here for V3. The gold still sitting within 1k in the favor of V3. My question is, do V3 need to be perhaps more proactive in the coming minutes? Because we touched on scaling, CGA are happy to scale, so are V3, but I got kind of a hint that perhaps CGA late game is going to be easier to execute.
I would say that they would like to be more proactive. The issue comes in the form of how you find it. Because looking across the board, Talia is always going to have summoners available because of Spellbook. Bot side, the only thing you've blown so far is Primo's Flash, and that's realistically not the biggest deal in the world. And top side, Nap has managed to get that Ghost back up. So even if you go to a lane, you don't have fantastic setup tools across the board to really start anything. So you're very much reliant on the opposition making mistakes or just ganking and re-ganking, which is something that obviously costs Unica a lot of time. So the Poppy instead electing to farm up, which is not necessarily the wrong choice. It just creates this difficulty, shall we say, in making that first play happen. Instead, V3 I think might gain more advantage from counter ganking and from playing into CGA's advantages, but the problem is that CGA their scaling isn't bad, so they don't need to force plays if they don't want to, which I think is what's causing this dynamic of the game is quote unquote slow. It's more like no one feels comfortable about making something happen first because V3 kind of can't, and CGA don't have to. So we're in a bit of a lull state because of that.
Yeah, and even when CGA made plays, they have been set up really well. And, despite the Dragon ultimately going to V3, it was still a good setup on the Drake, and CGA didn't lose any kills. So they've been playing it very carefully. The Mythics now picked up on everyone, apart from the Gwen Nap, still yet to get that Riftmaker. And just sending the AD carries mid lane. It's the standard LJL mid game, 50 mids in, still yet to get a kill.
It's slow but surely going to be ramping up. It's like a fine wine, you see, because we're scaling we're scaling it by 10 years, and then at that point, it's going to be absolutely delicious when we do get that first blood. Because I'm sure it won't just be one; it'll be a couple. And with the Herald being started up, V3 now, the first one's objective. They have the Poppycopter available to maybe knock us in flank for 6.
There's the Weaver's Wall. Oh, it catches V3 over the Cyclone for the knockouts as well. Yu-Gi-Oh! He picks up the first blood, but falls down very shortly, and the damage from CGA maybe isn't exactly as big as I expected. 1-for-1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the problem is that so many members of V3 were able to jump out. I think it was Wallop and the Gnar coming through there from Washide and then jumping over the wall. Dresscode was able to slide and glide straight over that one pretty easily, like a little bit of an ice skating angle there, and carries the Yuumi. So it's only really the Pulpy that can be maintained, and even then, it doesn't do much. So let's just look at this one again. I believe the V3 were the ones able to secure the Herald off the back of it, but Primo finds a nice hook here onto Yuji, ends up getting caught out on the Weaver's Wall. It looks so good, combo with the Cyclone, but there's 2 out already. Third one, Poppy dashes over. So does the Gnar as well. It's only going to catch onto Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the amount of mobility available. On top of that, there's so much damage being pumped out from Dresscode on the backside of the fight too. The Kassin ends up going down too. It's a 1-for-1 as well as going to be that Herald over to V3 plus First Blood. They actually end up being in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, this is a pretty damn good fight for V3. That being said, Cocoon's flank was scary there. If you do that later on in the game where Kassin does damage, where the Wombo combo can stack through, that is a devastating fight for V3. So honestly, I'm impressed right now with Cocoon's positioning in that team fight. Let's see if he can do it later on in the game.
I mean, you can't ask for that much more from Atelier. That's exactly what you need. You find a wall that essentially blocks everyone off and does force a really horrid looking fight. The problem is that it's about blowing cooldowns too. I think the Primo engage was nice, but you're only finding it onto kind of the wrong person. We need to blow up Dresscode's, or at the very least force the dash out of this Zeri, and then you can wall them off, and that's the killing blow. Unfortunately, didn't come through that time, but you are still showing a little bit of that knowledge and a little bit of comfort, which is something that I think the Cocoon has definitely struggled with a bit throughout this split so far. Hasn't been the most comfortable in those early stages, and whilst the team fighting has been okay, it felt like there was some nerves creeping in, and perhaps now starting to calm down and starting to feel a little bit more comfortable within this CGA roster.
Absolutely, and talking about the developments on the map, we have a bot side event from CGA. Herald is going to be used top lane. That tier 2 is going down. I don't think Nap can do a whole lot to prevent that. He is going to try and fight Unica. Alright, it's just the tier 2 tower, no charge onto the inhib. So all things considered, V3 gets some value, but it's not the most insane Herald in the world.
Yeah, it's not terrible for V3 though. The only issue is that it does create a unfortunate dynamic now where what Nap can do is you can allow this wave to push in, you can sit at your inhib tower, you can freeze the wave, and Gnar can't do anything. Because in that 1v1, the Gwen is actually winning right now. So it does actually create a bit of an awkward spot. Luckily, freezing is kind of illegal in terms of the fact that no one does it, so it should be fine. But it does create a bit of an unfortunate situation where if Nap was willing to do so, the game actually really starts to fall apart there, because you're forced then to try and send Gnar mid, and then you're creating a dynamic of, hey, we have Gnar Galio, but we can't dive Talia because Talia has rocks, and she also has the ability to be ranged, so that kind of sucks. And she can wave clear for days, so nothing's happening. And then in a neutral state where your Gnar is being perma-froze on, then you obviously start to lose out pretty hard. So there was that opportunity now being created. Luckily, CGA not utilizing that window appropriately, and instead they're just trying to group up around this bottom side, but the dragon isn't going to spawn for a little while yet, so perhaps they're looking to make good utilization of this Talia and try and find picks, but it might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, the Baron is going to spawn in 15, but I don't expect either of the teams to be looking at that immediately, so for the next few minutes, the available objectives are going to be pretty scarce. Now, Unica, together with Etel, were trying to do a bit of a loop around on Cocoon, but they were spotted out, and Cocoon, as we said, you're a Talia, you're ranged, you can just stay back and it doesn't hurt you too much. Collector, picked up by Hybrid, the Aphelios sitting on 2 items. That's going to be important for the fights to come.
So I was a little bit concerned there, because I thought they might be trying to dive it, but with the Talia still having the flash available, I think it's quite hard to gank Cocoon here, because you don't have a great primary CC. I mean, your opener is Yuumi R, and Poppy maybe dashes on, but if the dash gets flashed, then the dive starts to fall apart. But they don't go for it, they bail out in the end, even though there's no Renata, the bailout still comes through, and now V3, it feels like we're in that moment of time where they want to find something they're struggling for, because Sin might be able to find something topside. However, Heroic Entrance might be used as an exit tool.
Everfrost finds the root, and Yu-Gi-Oh's tower instead is going to go down. He's going to go golden. The rest of V3 are coming in to the rescue. That is the flash away. Shield of Duran is going to be charged up. Yu-Gi-Oh so incredibly low, and that is now finally the kill. Unica now, oh hell, he got sniped by that hook, and that is the second kill picked up by CGA. That's going to be the calls for the Baron from the looks of it. The CGA, they might just blow the game wide open now.
Get down, Mr. President, says Hatel as he bodyguards to jump in front of Unica, but it's just a little bit silly there coming through from Yu-Gi-Oh. Has the ability to just dash out that one, and Weaver's Wall now going to be dropped here by Cocoon as well to just seal off the jungler, prevent that steal attempt from coming through, and it's a really nice one now. It means that the Baron's going to get very, very low. No one on V3 can really contest in time. I love the usage of this Talia. It looks so clean.
Yeah, and now with the Baron buff as well, we're gonna see how it all started. I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh even expected, well, I for one didn't, this tower to go down this incredibly fast.
Well, I'm just a bit confused as well, because what you can do here as Yu-Gi-Oh is you could just ulti to force the Cyclone maybe to come out of the Wukong, but it's not even potentially an opportunity there, but instead just waits for the tower. The interrupt comes through on that teleport as well, so maybe Na can come and help out, so nice stuff there from Cocoon, but the Cyclone is there, Yu-Gi-Oh goes down, and now maybe you were wanting to heal up your Poppy, but the hook comes through. But crucially, it was actually the Cyclone that came in with that interrupt first. So great stuff there from the side of Kasin to end up interrupting that one. And now V3, they're playing against this Baron buff, and with the Dragon spawning in 30 seconds, it's going to be a really tough contest.
The items are starting to get stacked up against them too. Void Staff, you've got the BF Sword on the Hybrid, and Kasin now, he's potentially called out from the rest of the team. Unica is there with a steadfast presence. There is the push as well. Teleport is being channeled right now. Yuji is standing strong in the front line. Kasin, so incredibly good. Watch it die. Trying to flash in to finish him off, but he can't quite do it. Heroes Entrance will keep him alive for the time being, and the fight is absolute chaos. Kasin is going to go down. Dresscode is still untouched in the backside. Primo is there, but Hybrid is now going to be hitting free onto Unica, and V3, they're starting to fall. Double kill is picked up by Dresscode, but that is all he can do, as 4 members of V3 will fall. Only 2 kills back onto CGA, and they're going to take the Dragon and put themselves on the soul point.
Yeah, crucially, the final hook there from Primo, the dying act of the Nautilus hooks in this area, means that the damage can come through very, very easily from the other members of CGA, and they're able to clean up the fight very, very quickly. Here's the problem, though, is that we utilize the Mega Gnar a bit too early there from Washidai. If we look at the actual play, it's a great initiation here from Unica. Utilizes the steadfast presence to interrupt Kasin's W dash, and off the back of that, it looks so nice, but Gnar loses so much damage when you go into Mega. Goes Mega immediately, which means that now you don't have the damage to actually kill off this Wukong, so Kasin is able to get out, and now Washidai is the target, ends up getting blown up pretty quickly, and is very, very low, and now Yu-Gi-Oh on the backside forces himself into a really awkward spot now, and unfortunately, look at Dresscode here. The positioning looks great. Doesn't use that left click, though, to kill off Primo and gets hooked, as well as the depth charge. And it's just the nuclear option gets activated by CGA to kill off the AD carry.
Yeah, there's so much zoning in that fight from Cocoon and Primo, which means that Dresscode really struggles to find the damage. And then once Hybrid was enabled to hit for free, I mean, it's a back then 2-item Aphelios. Now it's a 3-item Aphelios with an Infinity Edge. V3, you're not winning a fight if Hybrid can hit you.
Yet at this point, I feel like if you're a V3 fan, you just have to take a step back. You have to hope that you can get to 3 items on your Zeri, and then maybe the damage starts to come through a little bit more because she spikes so hard at that point in the game. But look at the gold difference between the AD carries. It's 2k there already. Arguably one of the bigger differences here among sort of the actual money of each. And with the Poppycopter being put onto that smaller cooldown, they can't exactly dissuade this charge of the members. Now able to free hit his hybrid with all the cooldowns being blown, and the tower is going to slowly but surely fall, even with no Baron to actually do the work.
Yeah, V3 will clear the wave, and the tower will stand a few more seconds. But the push is coming through from CGA. They have secured themselves a 5,500 gold lead. The mid game has been cleaned by them. It has to be said, and they're trying to slowly finish it off. Weaver's wall from Cocoon. V3 are now stuck in a tough position. Dresscode will hop over the wall. Unica, though, stack in the front line, and Hybrid will take him down. Washidai trying to stand guard. Dresscode dived on by Kassin, and he can't hit any of the priority targets at all. Triple kill picked up by Hybrid. Nap is going to take down Dresscode. That's a clean ace for a CJ with a quadra for the ADC.
Yeah, and they could even look to end the game here, potentially. The death timers aren't the longest, but with a wave already there and the 5 members alive, they can hit it really, really quick. You've only got Unica. Maybe you can utilize the Keep's Verdict to knock them away. Maybe that way you can stall, but that won't work on Gwen. It'll only work on the others, because Gwen is immune. However, the towers are falling really, really fast. 5 seconds on Unica.
I think the game's over. The Nexus is open. CGA... been slow to get there, but the mid game's been all them, and they will take the win over V3, putting them down 2-0 on 34.
And I don't understand several parts